Okay, thank you everyone for joining in all today. And we are going to be discussing today about how we can simplify CSTM value, and we can talk more about how digital portfolio management works. Okay. And to kick things off, I just want to cover with our safe harbor notice, which is just there to keep our lawyers happy. And to summarize what it says, you might see some forward-looking statements today. We might be end up discussing what's getting built out in future. So just as a disclaimer, please do not make any purchasing decisions based on anything that's on today's webinar. But it's going to be awesome content and hope all of you stay engaged with us towards the end as well. Okay, so for today's session, we have Chris, who's joining in as our in-house expert in the ITSM and ServeOps space. I'll let you introduce yourself, Chris. Please go ahead.
Sure. Hi, Chris, John, Carly, everybody. Thank you for making the time today. Like Nikita mentioned, in that service operations ITSM space, been with ServiceNow for about almost 10 years now. So we're going to talk about how that space meshes with the CSDM model and making that simpler to consume and how all of that value then manifests itself in the digital portfolio management workspace.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. We also have Caitlin Morse in the chat, who's the principal PM for digital portfolio management and has been in this space for more than 7 years now. Whether it's about services, she's the go-to person to get all your answers about it. And along with Caitlin, we also have Justin, who's on the engineering side, supporting all of your Q&A that is coming up and popping up in your Q&A or in your chat as well. And I'm Nikita. I support Caitlin and Justin in digital portfolio management team and as the capacity of a outbound product manager. And I've been with ServiceNow for close to 1.5 years now with the ITSM space. You might have seen my name pop up in anything that you might have seen about digital portfolio management posted across all of our community channels. Okay, thank you. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself? Come off mute.
Sure, yeah. I'm Justin Harden. I've been with ServiceNow for over 4 years now. I lead the engineering team that builds digital portfolio management service builder, and we also support service portfolio management. And I will be trying to support any questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And okay, before we jump right in, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's event. Please use the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that you may have during today's event. We'll be monitoring the Q&A and try to answer as much questions as possible. And if needed, we will also be having 15 minutes at the end of the event in which we'll try to answer any questions that are there that could be answered live as well. But just try to use the Q&A and refrain from using chat so we are able to monitor it more efficiently. And you also have reactions button in case you like any content that's getting popped up on the screen, feel free to react to it and just let us know how you feel about it. And also just try we'll be also sharing the recording as well as the presentation after the event in case you are unable to access or you want to refer the content again. Feel free to use our community hub to access those. And after the webinar, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey. And we are hopeful that every one of you just fills it so that we can get your feedback. That's super valuable to us. And as we build along these sessions, it helps us improve the content that we are posting out there. So if you have the time, please take the survey as well. And we also have extensive lineup of future live and ServiceNow events where you can interact with more ServiceNow experts and your peers as well. The link with more details about it will be shared in the chat today as well. Okay, so we have a pretty packed agenda that's designed to help you maximize your journey with digital portfolio management. First, I'll just provide a concise and brief overview of what digital portfolio management does for those who are new to the product. Then I'll pass it over to Chris to share his tips, guidance, and tricks that he has for simplification of CSDM, and also highlighting what are some of the common pitfalls that have been encountered by the customers while also at the end demonstrating how it values surface up within digital portfolio management. Finally, we are also excited to give you a brief sneak peek at our latest capabilities and also share resources that can support your continued success with the product. So I'll start with why our journey in developing digital portfolio management began with. It started with identifying a very critical issue that is faced by our customers. That's the challenge of having a slow and an inefficient IT service delivery. And that often stems from either disconnected systems that they might have or a lack of centralized workspace that's providing them with 360-degree visibility that's needed to break down organizational silos. Now, with today's fast-paced world, we are seeing that many organizations are finding themselves grappling with either it's the high costs that's there or the inefficiencies of their IT services. And it's a common struggle trying to balance out your budgets while also ensuring that every dollar that is getting spent is delivering real value. Today, I'll cover some of the pain points that surfaced up when we started researching into this problem a bit further. The first one that kept popping up constantly is that there was no central place to view and collectively manage both your services and applications. That is helping you maintain a clear overview of your entire digital landscape, which assets you own, what some of the services, what are the applications, and giving you one lens, one view that can help you make better and efficient decisions. The second one that kept up was having access to real time data and information, which was just scattered across different disparate tools or lacking altogether, while it was making it very difficult to understand how your services or your system is performing. And not having access to that real time data was making it very difficult and inefficient for service owners and solution owners to understand what is the correct decision to make. The third one that was very evidently across all multiple organizations was lack of visibility into what's happening on my technical, operational, and what's my planned roadmap right now. The last thing that we've heard constantly as well is the complicated setup, which is it's becoming very time consuming to set up what you own in ServiceNow. And you also face a certain lack of guidance on how it should be done. Thinking about some of these challenges is when the idea of digital portfolio management started in house and we started working on it. Solving for these problems is what you see currently represented in this very powerful visual that basically covers the basis of what DPM offers. With DPM, we are able to bridge together multiple parts of the platform and allow a solution owner to track performance through a single lens. A solution owner might have number of services offerings and applications that they manage as part of their role. For example, let's say an app support manager may own the finance platform. They might be having an ITSM tool as well. They might be having multiple bespoke internal applications, and they just want to be able to view that in one lens. So DPM allows them to group all of those services together into one pane of glass. It's the window into accessing information, what you are able to see as a project manager from strategic portfolio management, or what you're able to see as an architect, as a service manager, or as an operation manager. It also surfaces up more information about risk. If you have any information related to vulnerabilities, it is able to provide you that one lens. It's all about breaking down those silos and providing that unified workspace that's offering you real time visibility. With digital portfolio management, you're not just managing your IT, but you're actually strategically aligning it with your business goals. And it helps in keeping stakeholders manage their solutions more effectively by making it that single source of truth for performance or health of all your digital assets. And just as a brief intro, digital portfolio management has been launched since San Diego family release, and it's part of the ITSM standards queue. And based on that, we have been iterating on the product from multiple releases, and we have multiple capabilities out there that cater to solution owner persona. But given the potential of DPM, the main concern that we've been hearing from our customers constantly is while trying to achieve that comprehensive alignment, where do I start? Where do I set up my base camp? That's what we'll be covering today with Chris. The entire journey that begins with setting up a very strong foundation with CSDM and finally seeing its value light up in digital portfolio management. Chris, if you're ready, I'll pass it over to you so you can help guide our customers through it.
Yep, I'll replace the share here. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to move through a lot of information here. And basically what we're going to do is talk about digital portfolio management. Just to be clear for everybody, it's a module in ServiceNow, comes with ITSM standard, but essentially it's a workspace that renders a lot of information that is gathered from all out the CSDM model. So any parts you're using, we're able to show that as value back to the business and render to business stakeholders that what we're working on internally. I know what I get a lot of questions all the time is, where do I start with CSDM? There's a lot of theory in the white paper, but can I see something that is actionable or an example helps demystify a lot of things? And even though all of us on this call may be doing a lot of that value in the model, if we can't show it to our stakeholders, they don't see the value. You know what I hear the most common is I hear you guys in IT using a lot of acronyms. You say you're working hard, you're doing all this CSDM work, but I can't see it. I'm not sure what you're ever doing back there. And I need to see, what I care about, which maybe I'm the stakeholder that delivers the order management service for our company. We're going to cover that in the next 30 minutes, end to end, of an example of that and where to start. But basically, CSDM for most probably, you're familiar, you've heard of Common Service Data Model, but the way I like to describe it really is out of all of our service offerings across the platform, whether you're using our plan and build EA tools, SPM tools, our run for ITSM operations, there needs to be a common way to describe our data in the platform, right? So we've given you a prescription of, for any service, follow the prescription, all services, all modules, and even all our vendors and other partners and their service graph connectors all know what to do with their data, putting it in the data model in a standard location. And if we all follow that prescription and put all the data in here, digital portfolio management says, I know how to go to look at all the areas because I know what I'm expecting to find, and I'll round that data up and render it for our stakeholders. But before we get there, we really have got to be able to, fulfill that CSDM population. Now, you've probably seen this, right? We throw this at you, we put it in the white paper, we dump every definition, everything at you, and quite frankly, it's way too much to consume. 99% of the people out of 100 that I talk to will tell me, look, I get it in theory, but where do I start on this? And what's crawl or run, or what can I really do with me versus I need help from the business to do, and just where do I start? And I really want to focus on today about being very pragmatic and how do we just simplify this and walk through this. So I do a lot of workshops for customers to get them on their feet with CSDM that actually translate by the end of the 2-hour workshop. They can show it in DPM and show to their stakeholders. That's what I'm going to walk you through mostly today. So let's move on here. The first tip I want to give, nomenclature here, it completely matters. These 4 sets of words in green, we have to use them consistently. All the people in your business need to use them consistently. When we interact and mix these words, it gets really confusing for all the people in a company really fast. Business applications, we'll talk about that in the model first, but it's really the non-operational space. This is our list of applications, right? Of like big applications that run the business. When we install that application somewhere in a logical stack, think of it like this. Order management became order management dash prod or order management dash dev. That's an application service recently renamed as a service instance in CSDM5. That's operational. That's a live running instance of this application. We could have multiple, right? Prod, dev, QA, training. Those pieces are a little bit different than when we just say application. That's more of just an exe, something discoverable, a file, any little exe file that anyone runs anywhere. That's your software manifest that's reported by OSs like Linux and Windows and such. And the last one's really that business service that think of what's running in the data center. This is though what people should be coming to and know it as, and they connect to as a consumer. And, the big thing we do is say, hey, we consume this application service, but when you're a business service, that front end, order management, I can offer it to you in many locations or in many SLAs is the 2 most common ways to think about a service offering of that application service. And most customers never really get to here. And the most common question I'll get between business application and application, help me understand that. Shouldn't every application be over here in business application? Or there's a lot of debates in a lot of companies. What I'll say is you're going to have every application at the EXE level using something like Discovery listed out. If you don't want it as a business application, it's too mundane, like a PDF reader. Here's my middle of the road advice. All of these are going to become and able to be managed as just software models if you want. Make a model for this, manage it as a model, gives you the visibility and some of that technical operations management. Business application, if you want to put it in this table, the big middle of the road statement I make to a lot of people is this is where we track and rationalize an application for the business on what you should do. Should you invest more in it, divest in it, just sustain it? EAs want to look at it. They want to understand the cost structures, incidents and changes, and what it costs to run, what it costs for the life cycle, what does it cost to upgrade and plan for it and put it into the demand table and keep it in budgets. You may not want to do all that work for a PDF reader executable. You're going to want to do all that work for your things like your SRP or your financial systems or your order management. And that's kind of the line in the sand I tell people that if you want to have that visibility to rationalize and have your EA tools and keep your cost tracking and what you invested in the application and trying to forward plan demands for invest, diversify or sustain, then it should probably end up as an entry in this table also that you're tracking and doing that work in the plan and the build area. So moving along, 3 simple words here, where we get started if we're going to make DPM light up and show business. First, we got to have our foundational data. That pretty much happens before go live and people underestimate it, but you really got to start to get sharper with, we got to have some governance around departments, locations, groups, and all that foundational data that we put in the platform. Because we're going to use those fields on user records, on service records, on any of those application records also. But the very first thing, right, we got to list our business applications. And then if we do, we need to know that we're running them somewhere. So we extend that business application, go on the application table. We're going to make an application or a service instance that says, I have a prod or a dev or a QA of this app running and make a relationship back. And then this part right here, this is the CMDB, right? This is that Apple EXEs, the servers, the networks, the databases. Think of this as the CMDB box, actual CIs. The rest of this is CSDM. If we can't do this well, don't worry about all the other stuff on the drawing yet. Think of this as like this is your shoulder, your spine, and your hips. If you don't have a solid foundation, all the rest of this stuff is arms, legs, fingers, and toes. It isn't going to matter. Don't get your head wrapped up in it yet if we can't actually execute and have a solid spine to run on. And I like to focus this right to executives down to this. Really just think of it this way. What we have, what applications do we have? This is where we run those applications. Where have we installed them? What instances, what data center, and what equipment in the CMDB on it? And then this is who consumes it, who uses that stuff, where do they connect to it? That's it. Think of it just in these terms. That whole drawing is nailed down to 3 simple words. When you're thinking about a part in your infrastructure, your service model, or anything, ask yourself, is it a who, a where, or a what? And that's really where you need to be focusing on that. So I also like to use this analogy because a lot of people go, I can't explain it to VPs well. They get really confused. They say they get it, but they're still confused. Think of this as a dining room. This is just like if we walked into a restaurant, we've all used a restaurant. We've all been in a dining room. We all get a menu. We all say, I want to order the omelet for breakfast. Oh, is it the farmer's omelet? Is it the, ham and cheese omelet? Obvious different offerings of an omelet. But back here's the kitchen. We just know how to make omelets and we can make whatever offering you want. We'll put those ingredients in, right? Do we need a grill? Do we need a fryer? Do we need certain pans and pots? That's all those CIs in the data center, right? That we're in the kitchen, which kitchen, and what do we need to make an omelet get delivered out to the dining room? And then think of this as the pantry, the ingredients. I need eggs, I need peppers, I need cheese, I need whatever. We own all that stuff. We invest in it. We track if it's worth having because maybe the one omelet never sells. When we rationalize and go, we should stop carrying those ingredients, but that's what we provide out to the kitchen, right? The kitchen can always stand that stuff up and deliver it. Most VPs get this right away, relate to that and go, okay, I see where we're putting stuff and why that's important. Now that was all great theory, but people then say, okay, no one ever shows me an example of what this looks like in the platform. How hard is this to do? That's a great example right here. So if we pulled up a dependency view map and said, I have, a CI and I want to see all the CSDM about it, this is that table right here. I just described the app table. It's right here. We can navigate to it, hit the new button. We can make an application. We now have, some application like order management, but I haven't installed it anywhere. That's this table right here. Basically, here's in some child tables, but if I navigate to here, make a service instance, there's a nice wizard that says I can say this is, the order management portal dash prod, and it'll create it, and that wizard will automatically build this relationship and ask me which app. So now I've made these two. And then this next part is really the service offering record. We can navigate here and we're going to build a record in that table. There's also Service Builder. It's called Service Builder in our store. Terrific wizard that will work you through building this record out, because this is a record that's has a ton of fields. It's a very data intensive record. And if you don't know all the fields and all the data, it could be taunting to build it yourself. Service Builder will step you through every field with great examples, great definitions, and then it'll create that relationship also and say, here's who uses it. Here's how we offer it on the menu. Do we have different SLAs for it? Do we have different departments? And that's that, who, what, and where. This stuff right here, basically I'm simplifying greatly. That's the CMDB. So you're doing discovery, and I've just shown a single Windows server, but normally you might have a service map or multiple CIs and a lot of relationships. You attach them all to this service, right? To say, this is actually when something breaks down here, we then can follow the relationships and go, oh, well, wherever this Windows server is, I know it's part of the order management portal, and I know what its business criticality is, and I know who, is it the whole company or certain locations or departments? So when you think of it this way, 3 tables and hitting the new button 3 times and making 3 simple records can create a fully functional CSDM metadata model, on top of this CI. Now it doesn't sound that daunting compared to that giant picture in the white table. So let's work through that a little bit, right? Major steps in an application service. I'm going to kind of do this top down, and then I'll talk about a technical service in a little bit. But the idea here is what I just described, right? We're going to create a business application, just capturing that for the recording purposes and that navigation path. You're then going to build an application service and relate it back up to your service, what I just walked through. Again, your navigation path to do that. And if you follow this navigation path when you hit the new button, there's a really nice UI wizard to make an application service. Allows you to create the service name. It has some panels at the bottom that show you your business applications, and you can just select and click on the business application, and it'll say, oh, you want to have that app service related to this business application. I'll do that when you save this record, and it'll even put the right relationship type in place, and it will actually create the relationship for you. So it doesn't have to be extra relationship work you need to do. And then the second step of this wizard is you can actually attach the CIs out of the CMDB. Variety of methods. We can do it manually. I'm a big fan of dynamic CI groups. We could do it by attaching a service map. We have a lot of varieties for service map, or even do it by some tagging structure. So we've tried to make this that there's a lot of varieties of easy ways to say I want to rope in, lasso in a group of these CIs and attach them to your application service. And then when you hit save, it builds that all out, the app service, the upstream relationship, and all the CI relationships. And then the last steps really navigate and use Service Builder. Get it from our store, create a service, you'll create a business service offering, and you can create technical service offerings also in Service Builder. And then when you save it, Service Builder is going to go ahead and create that business service offering record, relate it all up to the rest of these items for you. So that's making an application service and getting you started in that little part I talked about. So that's great when you think of an application service and somebody calls in and says something's wrong with my application. But there's the other half of this, a technical service offering. Everybody's heard about that in CSDM. And, that's the idea of saying who supports this stuff. Is it what application teams, what support groups, what managed by groups? So the other half of CSDM is getting around that technical service offering. To start and get simplified here, there's a great document here. I think, Nikita, you could put this link out of the slide right in the chat so people could cut and paste it. In this link here is the great overview doc, but this is the link to follow to say put a technical service offering in place and practice. Really does a great job And what I'd recommend is build your business app in an application on the slides we just did first. Build those out. And then create a few dummy CIs in a window class. So you have some working CIs that are some samples you can work with, but don't fill in their support group. Gosh, my mouse is really jumpy today. My apologies. And here's their support group, their managed by group, change group fields. Leave those blank right now in these dummy CIs. And it's great if you have admin rights because there's a scheduled job to run that can immediately prove some of this process. So do what we just discussed on the previous slides. Do your business app, build an app service, put some of those dummy CIs attached to it with these empty. And then you're going to follow this step up here and say, okay, what I just discussed for you with an application service is really great if you have a top-down type of incident or change. Basically, caller calls in, and using my example like order management, they go, I can't use order management. So you're able to put that in the incident form under the service field or the service offering field, which are standard out-of-the-box fields, including the configuration item field. But if you're not using service or the service offering fields, out-of-the-box fields also on the task table should be on your incident form as you mature. But you're going to put in order management, and you're going to go top down, and that's going to help you say, okay, I realize that CI flowed back up to this critical app, and it's critical, and I got to do something. But I look at the application, and let's say the application's healthy. Now what? It must be something in the OS or the database or the network below me. Who are those teams that support me from a technical service perspective? Or what if I even got a host name or an IP? I got an event-generated incident. I know nothing about those teams, right? That's where we want to go with a technical service in this procedure. So if the app team says, hey, my service, my app seems good, but I agree it's not working right. I need help from my technical service orgs. Where's my database engineer guys, my Linux or Windows engineer guys? What's the right team for this service? In most large organizations, they have more than one team for a CI class. I mean, they can have hundreds of Windows servers in their CI class, but go, look, certain Windows CIs we've got a separate team that handles that application versus another application or locations like at plants. So let me show you this in a drawing, what we just described, right? We've kind of covered off, you know, what I mentioned is that human service, business application service offering. We did that business app, mapped application service, offering record, connected some CIs. And if somebody calls in, it's going to go top down. They're going to say, I'm having trouble with order management, and we may pump that in. Or, we get to this and go, well, we know the stuff. And we've talked with the application service team people, and they say the app's healthy. Something must be wrong with the Windows OS or the database in it, or maybe some networking underneath that. Who are those people? This is the way to look at it from a technical service offering. That's coming at it from this direction. I need to know who are these teams. These are usually IT teams, right? And we can say for like the Windows class, we have a default group of support, change, or manage. But depending on the CIs here, the default group, this may be global corporate, Windows support team. But what if this server's in plant number 6 and we have Windows guys in plant number 6 and plant number 6 does some really important stuff? Wouldn't I really want it to go right to those local guys that are right there, boots on the ground? How do I change and override that? That's what a technical service offering can do for a Windows server. If I had a database CI network, I could have multiple technical services hitting that. And the best way to show that is making these offering groups with a TSO record. I can rope in and say, I'm gonna use something like a dynamic CI group, or I can use a service map here and say, this subset of CIs are important. And I'm going to make a TSO that says, whenever it's this subset of CIs, because maybe they support this application, I want to have a definite service offering technical service record where I call out explicitly who these groups should be. They may not be the default groups that overall manage the whole class. And then what we got to do is, this is, the CMDB, and we may know that from the CMDB. And in the CSDM record, you made in Service Builder, you make this record. But how do these two know about each other, right? There's an actual relationship you manually put in the CMDB to go, you now know about you. And you're a pair, you're bonded now. That doc link we put in ahead shows you exactly the step and how to do that. And when I talked about that piece, I'll talk about it in a second. But this way, when you do this, you've really got two ways in a complete view now that anything can come in and be set up for CSDM here when a stakeholder looks at it. So let's run through an example. I was mentioning, let's say an application like vehicle assembly. We own it, we put it in that table. That was our step in that first step. We actually used the application service wizard under the CSDM navigation on the previous slides I showed you, right? And said, you know what? I've got vehicle assembly actually installed at each individual location for full redundancy. This runs the assembly line. If it goes down, I only want that plant affected. I don't want multiple plants sharing this. For full high availability, I give it the most fault tolerance. I've installed it, right? But how do I know which plant this is? I use Service Builder and said, hey, I made an offering record telling us that this particular mapped instance, what's the locations and what's our commitments and who's our app support groups. I know it's only for plant one. I did that 3 times. I got 3 plants, 3 app offerings. I made 3 records. So now if somebody calls in, we're going to know something about that. And I've actually mapped down or dynamic CI group. Hey, these are the CIs out of a Windows class table that are really in that plant or assigned just to that plant application versus others. So multiple Windows servers, all in the same Windows class. How do I know which people I want assigned to which ones? Um, and if we call in and a human says, hey, vehicle assembly's down, and I look at their user ID, and their user ID has a location field. And if their locations were tracking people, we see he's at plant 2. We can immediately on an incident form put in a caller and put in vehicle assembly in the service record. And we can have a business rule that goes, users in this location, we can map the user location plant 2 to the service plant 2 to know it's just this that's down. When a VP goes, is all of vehicle assembly down globally? No, these aren't, just this location. We've immediately determined blast radius and criticality. The other half of it is the technical service side. Okay, what if I actually have people in the plant to support vehicle assembly? They know these servers intimately. They know everything about vehicle assembly. They know when vehicle assembly has goofy errors. They know exactly what might be going on here. I want to be able to say, put those in a service map or dynamic CI group and subset them for plant 2. I set their location as plant 2. I know it. Then I use Service Builder, make a TSO for just plant 2, and I put in the relationship. Now the system's going to say, hey, if we had an event with a host name or an incident and just this server just died, how would we know which way to go? Well, we would know to go both ways. We'd immediately in an incident say, hey, we know it's plant 2. It's a mission critical application. And by the way, who do we assign it to? We go this way and go, oh, there's a technical service offering. There's people right in the plant for the Windows part. And I could have multiple offerings here. I could do a same layer of these for the database layer, same layer of these for the network team. And I could say for super critical, I'm pulling in all the right people. So if the app people jump on and go, the app looks clean to me, I'm not so sure why. Or if it's broken, they fix the app. But if it's not clean, they immediately know who to go to here without reassignments, lost time, and go, I think it's the OS or the database. Let's go to the proper team right now and engage them. And even when we do this in a major incident, we know all those teams. This is a lot less complicated than that big, huge diagram in the white paper, right? I can see by layer in a specific thing. And if I built these records and built a few TSO records and did the groups and followed those 2 docs links, you could pull this up in a dependency view and see the whole thing. I go, I got a working, legitimate application. Do my sites, who uses them, where it runs, what it runs on, and who supports me underneath. And now it is rinse and repeat. Do app after app after app. So those key steps here, right? Make sure you have your groups already defined, foundational data. Who would you assign to those groups, right? If you had them, make sure location data is defined. In that same doc link to make a TSO has 4 major steps in it we just reviewed. Make a CMDB group, navigate to that, then make a dynamic group. Or if you have service maps and you're at that maturity, that's great. You could use those. Either one works fine. Then you go into Service Builder, you build a new technical service record. You're going to identify the groups you want to have assigned out. So now you know what your operations piece looks like, and you know what you want to do from a service perspective for the business, but they still don't know about each other. The next stage in that doc is you marry them. Literally, you have to go put a relationship in to the CMDB table. The doc does a really great job of telling you the parent and the child and a relationship type. And by the way, I think in Service Builder in the future in the roadmap, this will be something that Service Builder will be able to do for us. So you don't have to go manually in. And then there is a scheduled job for the admins out there. If you look up under uh, scheduled jobs and job definitions, you're going to see this job name, CMDB Data Sync. It should be true. It runs nightly, but you can set it to run more often. When you build these two records and then relate them, you won't see these populate down immediately sometimes to these records. That's what this job does every night. It sweeps through and goes, any new records, any new CIs, any new pieces? Do I have to populate any CI updates down from the record right into the change and support managed by groups on each individual CI? And if you're wondering why we do it on each individual CI, is it's for performance reasons. When we have millions of CIs, we can't dynamically try and calculate that stuff. It'd be a little too laggy for you. So we're populating that in at the CI level due to scale, size, and performance. So a couple pitfalls here. So for anybody who says a lot of technical debt they've accumulated, I agree. I've seen a lot of things, but some of the biggest ones here is the business application table isn't loaded. Is it even loaded? Got to load it. Got to get your foundational data in there. And what is a business application? I addressed these bullet points earlier. So, like I said, if EA wants to rationalize, you want to track cost, investment, and life cycles versus just being an EXE, make it a software model then. I won't spend a lot of time here, but because I want to cover some high value items here before our last 15 minutes. The other one, does the client use it correctly, right? So I see a lot of people just put everything in business application and then try to connect incidents to business applications. They never make the application service or relate them to the business application. They don't understand that layer. I think we've covered that here in doing that, right? And using, they didn't know about this wizard, which allows them to properly create an application service and in the same wizard, connect the business application and do the right relationship. They didn't know their service builder in the store. So building these records, really hard. If you've never done it before and you're doing it from scratch versus service builder working through that with you, a lot easier. And do you have the CMDB and CSDM Foundation dashboards? They'll do a lot of these data checks for you and help you find misuses of the model so that you can look at those anomalies and self-correct them. One of the other biggest pitfalls I see is they were using the business application table for operational, directly linking configuration items to a business app, directly linking and using on the incident form this record table, which when then you want to report on this or get any data operationally, use digital portfolio management, it doesn't look at this. That's not part of the model. It's the business applications being made operational by using that link to making them an application service, and everything relates back to that. It is operational, and using on the incident and change forms and all your things got to come back to the application services. They can't come up to the business app. Now, a lot of customers did this early in life, but that's the corrective path. When I'll see an application that's listed as something like this. I've made payroll prod, payroll test, payroll, 3 entries in the business app table. It should just say payroll, right? 1 entry. And then you should have these 3 entries down in an application set of service list records. And that's the corrective path. And DPM can never roll all that up just to payroll, and it doesn't even know how to find some of the incidents and change linkage in the common service data model that's prescribed because it's in the data's in the wrong place. And even discovery and mapping won't relate up to these for CIs, where it will for these, we say map this application service, it'll start automatically putting those links in place. So that's the biggest pitfall I see by far. And the last one is they're not exposing these tables, service and service offering, on the incident and change forms, just configuration item. You eventually, if you've made a service, even if it's an application service, I'd recommend using it on the service table. And if you get the business service offerings, do those because then you can have all of these in a form, and DPM can pull data, and the incident rules and change rules can pull data from top down and bottom up, and making sure you have those fields in place. But this will take some change management, organizational change management and training with your people here. So what I'm going to do is pivot a minute here to, well, you know what? I'll do this one slide and then I'll show it to you. So digital portfolio management, let's say we did all this, all these slides we just showed and put that on. This is the end result. This is pulling data from across the whole model. I'm going to skip the slide I had that builds this out for time because I'm just going to show you this actually live. Here's a screenshot of saying, I have a service, let's say my cart, an e-commerce cart checkout, right? Digital portfolio management workspace will pull up the business application and show you plan. Notice I can see demands if I'm using SPM, backlogs, and all my demands in it. What if I want to see all my demand planning and roadmap and timelines and add things and milestones and records and review that? Now, if I'm talking to a VP or a business stakeholder, he just cares about seeing his shopping service. He doesn't want to run 20 different reports on demands and backlogs and roadmaps and demands and changes and projects and then incidents and availability and outage records. Sort all of those different 15 reports by just the service he cares about. That's what digital portfolio management's doing, showing him just what he cares about front to back. So these are the planning. If I move into build, hey, we'll pull and look across the whole data model. Where do you have projects? Where do you have changes? Which ones are we doing? Only for the portfolio shopping service. Same with run. For that shopping service, I can give you any metrics. You can create an automated indicator in performance analytics and measure it. We can put that automated indicator into a KPI group. And if that KPI group is tagged to the DPM and service builder to this service, DPM will automatically render these tiles for you of those automated indicators. Open incidents, CSATs, outage record time, availability. Things like if I haven't updated an incident, you have an indicator in 5 days. As a service owner, I want to know just for my service, these are metrics I really care about, and now you're showing them to me. And I can even tell you things like, the offerings and the price. And what I'll do here is I did this to capture it for you in the recording. But what I'm going to do is just pivot for a second and show it to you live and give you a couple minutes of that. So I think it'll be more impactful because this is exactly now I'm in a workspace. You'll see there's a digital portfolio management workspace. There's also a navigator app for it to help set it up and configure it, which Nikita will call. But digital portfolio management's only goal in life is to go, I'm going to go look at the 50 tables in the CSDM model and find all the data and show it to a stakeholder. So a VP that I just showed you those screenshots of, I own an online shopping service. Great. I can see it at the plan, build, run level, and we'll go ahead and load that. And what that's going to do here is when your VP says, I don't understand the value, I don't see it, this is how you're going to show it to them. You say, look, we provide this application for you in a variety of offerings, but what are we doing overall from a planning perspective, right? I can show you, like I just showed in the screenshot, critical incidents, outages. I can show you your contacts, all these other pieces, but what are you planning? I have what are still in the backlog we haven't got to, total ideas, where are we in these demand cycles and percentages and screening them all. And I can actually use the demand planner if I'm in SPM and say, I want to see and have a conversation with you. Are all our demands, do they need to be reordered, resorted, retimelined? Any particular demand, I can preview to you what we think the priority is, Moscow values, any milestones we're looking to create on these, comment on them, and have a review session with you on your demands. But I can go back and say, show me build for this business. Same thing, projects. What do we have in flight? Are we missing any key milestones on any of those projects? Any critical issues that have been raised? What changes are pushing these projects into run, right? That are overdue, current state where changes are in, upcoming next week. Do we have improvement initiatives? We found bugs and defects and we got to push those in and overdue task. And I'd like to drill into that and get those back on track and any continuing improvement initiatives. So I can do this across any of the shopping service offerings, but plan and build kind of run at a higher level than that. And we go back to my home screen. I got a couple different offerings of that, right? Plan and build are all those features we're doing probably globally for that. But let's go into one of the service offerings, that run tab. You can see now I can actually show them for their B2B portal versus your B2C portal. I have different offering instrumentation. Number of incidents just on this portal, number of mean time to resolve, CSATs. I've tallied up outage records, availability, all of this incidents part, application service in the back end of the data center it runs on. Commitments. See how DPM's going? I'm showing that stakeholder and the VP. I know what you're performing at. I know where we run it for you. I know how we're meeting the commitment offerings we are for you. And on the information side, who consumes this? I pulled all that data out of those records. If it's in a portfolio, it's there. We could put pricing in there if we want. Back to the commitments. If I use a third party, we can tag contracts for third parties that help us provide that support. And here for just this offering went down versus the B2C offering, where, what locations, what subscribers, what departments. It's pulling all that. I can drill into any of that and see all those people. So when we look at all that, we're able to see all of those pieces in DPM and render that for you. And I can't really show it here. I'll show one last thing because it'll be important to get on the recording, and then we'll launch back to Nikita here. So I think you'd all agree if we were able to follow CSDM, but actually put all that in the workspace for each service and showed it back to our service stakeholder, they'd be a lot more impressed with what we're doing. And they would actually want to be able to say, I see blank spots and holes in my data here. Help me, it's not rendering for me. Here we go. Here's in the business service offering record. I'll go into that B2B, but if they saw holes in that screen, they'd say, I've been looking for a dashboard like this my whole life that just shows me everything front to back, just for my offering, plan, build, run, operate, and performance, without me running 50 reports and looking at 50 different screens and having to filter them all down to just the service I care about. And this offering record was built with Service Builder, but it's important that you use this view right here instead of the default view. Look at the service portfolio view, mark it, and what you'll see is a lot more data. Like we can have our support teams and all those in here and change teams, all that data you saw rendered. But more importantly, it shows you these related lists. Remember where did commitments come from? It knows where to find those tables. Where are the application services in the data center I depend on? They're right here. Who depends on me? If I depend on multiple offerings, we can support that. Knowledge articles, but who subscribed? This is how we're tagging people, right? These groups or these locations or these departments or these users, that's who's all impacted. And notice what else it's smart enough to do. All incidents being logged, where the service field or the service offering field was this service, B2B. So it's saying I got to track all problems, all incidents, all changes, and all outage records where the service offering field was tagged and or the service, not just the CI field. And then when it does, it can go, well, I can start rolling up and doing calculations for all this and SLA results for all this and put all of that data up on DPM for you. So when you've got that level of transparency back to your stakeholders, you get a lot more groundswell of support. So I'm going to pause there and stop and turn it back to you, Nikita, and let's launch our last poll and you can wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for that. Let me share my screen. Perfect. So we do have one last poll question for everybody over here. That's just to understand what are some of the pain points that resonate most with you when implementing digital portfolio management. I do know there were a few that were posted in the chat as well, but just to have one final say in that. We have the poll question up.
People are working on the poll. I just like to stress again. It's DPM Workspace is part of ITSM standard. Probably every single person on this call owns it. And yet it's the most unknown product out there. So you probably don't have a licensing issue. You probably have it.
I think the maximum is coming up as data not being mapped to CSDM, which is something that we are recognizing day by day. That's why we are building out and presenting more content like today's session. So yep. I think CSDM is one of the most critical foundational elements of how you start digital portfolio management journey.
And if you pick a couple critical services with some critical stakeholders and build out a couple of these, and you showed it in DPM, I think you'd get a lot of more groundswell of support about, oh, let's build a few more, because I don't think you need to build all your services. Pick your top 20 most crucial. I think you get a lot more groundswell. Because if you show them one or two, that helps you get a lot more support. Let's do this for 20 more.
Yeah, and I think that's what builds on to what we have next on how is there a flexibility of how you go about building out digital portfolio management, given that it's extensive, organizations are wide, you have multiple CIs, you have so many solution type data that you have to manage. I'm going to end the poll in interest of time so that we can quickly cover the end of the session as well. Okay, so as Chris shown us how powerful the CSTM methodology can be when your end result surface up in digital portfolio management. Now, by mapping out those data relationships correctly, you can really highlight what are the key performance metrics and close the gap between what business wants and what IT can deliver. But the question that we get, is there any flexibility, any guidance on that journey? Now, there's one thing that we have launched out there that's present in the product, that's the DPM Admin Center, which empowers the service administrator to configure the workspace that gets tailored to their organization's strategic objectives right now. So the guided setup helps you build that services, helps you define those relationships as well, and see what's needed right now to populate what's needed for your business apps, what's needed for your services, and what's needed for your offerings. And DPM Admin Center also provides the enterprises with the much needed flexibility that they need in terms of what data surfaces. There is a setting tab over there which provides you with a toggle button to turn off what data point you want to track right now. Let's say you do not have access right now to SPM and you do not want to surface up information related to roadmap. You can use the settings tab that's present in the admin center to hide some of that data. While using this admin center, you can define your own journey and what's the current focus for you right now, whether it's just building one metric or it's whether it's just tracking, let's say, for example, service availability for one portfolio. Eventually you can reach a state of maturity, but it will definitely take time. And that's why we're also coming up with the second resource, that's the adoption playbook, that can basically help you design your journey, and also that showcases a maturity model and and covers each and every critical implementation step by more and more prescriptive guidance. Now, with the maturity model, I won't be able to go deep dive into it, but I do want to briefly cover it because it is currently present out there on community as well, that provides step-by-step guidance on each and every one of these levels. So we are envisioning a customer journey uh, comes out as multiple levels. The first begins with building out a strong foundation, which we started covering with today's session. The second level is more about bringing structure and organizing your solutions into multiple portfolios. That can then be monitored at level 3 and level 4 by assigning KPIs or by creating your own personal portfolios and then configuring the workspace according to your needs. And there will be more details about this in the upcoming sessions. We do want to do a deep dive on the entire adoption playbook that we are building that provides step-by-step guidance on each and every one of these points and what's needed to build out that foundation as well. And another thing, as I promised, there'll be a sneak peek of the newly released capabilities. One thing that we had heard very recently was, how do I create my service portfolio? Folks wanted examples, they wanted guidance, and they wanted to understand, is there any visual support that I can get while I am editing any of my taxonomy nodes? So with the Q2 release of ServiceNow, you are now able to create service portfolios in digital portfolio management itself. And not just that, we have also released 3 out of the box templates that you can refer to see what an ideal portfolio structure looks like. One of them is about IT service portfolio, one is about organizational structure, and one is for an higher education IT service portfolio. And this new experience is currently already available out there if you are upgrading to your Zurich code. That's upcoming pretty soon. But yes, this is some of the feedback that we constantly hear from these sessions, and we try to incorporate in the product itself. And as we reach to the end, we do have some additional resources that you can access after this session to get to know more about DPM or any upcoming events that we have. And please use and ask your questions on DPM community site. It is constantly monitored, and we try to answer as many of these questions as possible. If there were some questions that we were unable to answer today in the session, please feel free to post it over there. We have the link present over here, and we also have the QR code if you want to quickly scan it. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me and my team for any further questions that you may have for us. And I do want to share information about other resources that are provided by ServiceNow that is related to ServiceNow Impact. We have multiple training and certification courses, and we also have expert services. All of these 3 are out there to enable your success and make the implementation journey as smooth as possible. And thank you all for joining today. And please share your thoughts through the post-event survey. And we'll try to bring more content like this in future as well. Thank you all.